Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. One common phrase which you will hear in the pub sometimes is bottoms up, and that means that the bottom of the glass should be upwards for everyone to see. In other words, you should be drinking. Okay, so some people say cheers and then they drink. Some people say bottoms up, which is a way to say let's all take a drink, because the very bottom of the glass will be raised up while you're putting it in your mouth. It's very common among groups of drinkers. You see them all sitting around the table, they're getting a little bit tipsy, and someone will say bottoms up and then will buy more alcohol. This is very common, especially amongst older people, and perhaps maybe more in the London area. An easier way is just to say cheers, but everyone knows what bottoms up means. The bottom of the glass should be raised. When I was a child, we used to say it too when we were drinking orange juice, but I think it's just something we learned from adults. When you're a child drinking root beer or ginger beer, those soft, non-alcoholic drinks. It was quite common to say to your friends, bottoms up, let's all drink before we go out. But it's definitely more of a pub thing. Speaking of drinking and drinking habits, I see that Americans are getting a little bit upset about people drinking on airlines. Now, this is very interesting. Here in the UK, we have an absolutely zero tolerance approach to drinkers on planes. So if you're drunk, you will be removed probably before you get on the plane. They will notice and they'll stop you from traveling. And also, if you make any comments or rude gestures to any of the staff, you're gone immediately. And if you're on the plane, you'll be restrained and they will take you away as soon as you land. But in America, they have a very different idea. Well, first of all, they fly much more than we do because it's a larger country. But there's pictures going around on social media of an American woman who's on a flight. I don't know which airline it is. And she's clearly very, very drunk. And the air hosts are trying to remove her. And she's screaming, I am an American citizen. You can't take me off this flight. You know the way they talk. And there's a big drama about it, of course. And eventually they just get the police and they take her off. And the rest of the people are chanting, get her off, get her off, get her off. It reminded me of a political campaign with Trump, the way he often asks his supporters to chant different phrases. It didn't look very nice. It was a little bit, for me personally, I found it a bit disturbing because it really highlights our differences in culture. I mean, we have this problem too, but for Americans, flying is a bit like taking the bus. It's very common for them. So it seemed strange. The whole thing looked odd. And she was dressed really badly, this lady. I remember when I was a boy, if you were going to the theatre, if you were going anywhere in public, you kind of made the effort to dress up a little bit. But this didn't look nice. Didn't look nice. But anyway, apparently 53% of Americans from the West Coast drink when they travel. I mean, I say the West Coast. I know nothing about American geography. So it could be anywhere. I know we always joke about Americans not knowing where Paris is or not knowing European cities, but I don't know anything about the American map. So 53% of them drink when they travel. In the central belt of America, 43% drink when they travel. And on the East Coast, 51% drink when they travel. Yeah, it's very interesting. On the website cheapflights.com, they did a survey, and apparently 20% of Americans only drink on the plane when it's free. I've never known any airline to offer alcohol free. I think that's a really, really bad idea. That's quite frightening. If they did that here, there would be big problems. But to be honest with you, I think airlines now are so strapped for cash. That's an idiom which means that they're financially barely able to survive, that they wouldn't offer us free alcohol. Remember, I told you in a previous podcast that theatres here tried that, and what they ended up with was a bunch of very drunk people who assaulted them. So, yeah, giving people on a plane free alcohol isn't a good idea. But again, Americans, they have a very different view of this. They love this idea of luxury. Big cruises, everything has to be double the size, and American breakfasts probably would be bigger than the British big breakfast. Anyway, 37% admit to drinking on the plane, 20% will only drink if they don't have to pay. Women are more likely to be drunk on an in-flight cocktail than men. 18% of women only drink when it's free, and 21% of men only drink when it's free. Some of them think that saving money on in-flight beverages leaves more money to spend on alcohol later, and 7% of Americans spend more on drinks than food when they go abroad. You see, that totally contradicts the other things they tell us about Americans, about they're all very religious and pious and everything else. Apparently, at the airport, 48% of men who drink while traveling choose beer, and 28% of women who drink while traveling choose a cocktail. Lots of figures here. 20% of men who drink admit to being intoxicated in the airport or on a flight, while only 11% of women report the same. Yeah, they're really struggling with this. I've actually seen more than one social media clip where you have these women who are really abusive towards everybody. I'm an American citizen. You leave me alone. And they have these stand-up arguments. Of course, we have it here too, but we're kind of battered into submission. If you even try anything before you get on a plane, you'll immediately be escorted away. And you can't even make a joke with them. When they're searching you, if you say, "Oh, really, I have a bomb," or something like this, you'll be barred from flying. They have a no tolerance approach to any kind of humor. But yeah, American culture is very different from us. We do drink, we do cause problems in the streets. We are very violent, but I didn't think this kind of thing happened in America so blatantly, because they have that whole gender thing of women behaving well. It's interesting. Yeah, even if you're giggling on the plane, you could arouse unwanted attention. It's better just to sit there and shut up. Speaking of giggling, I had this ice hockey lesson a few days ago with someone from Japan. It was a woman. I don't know why some people from Asia, when I'm teaching them, they just giggle, Have you done your homework? No. Okay, uh-huh. Can you do it for next time? No. Yeah, and everything I asked, she just giggled, What's life like in your country? What's the weather doing today? It's hot, it's hot, it's hot. And I'm thinking, what's with this whole giggling thing? It seems to be an Asian thing. Yeah, I remember once I had a girl from Thailand as well, and she was the same. She just giggled at everything. And when she wasn't doing that, she was crying. Oh, yeah, you understand me. And yeah, strange, isn't it? How different people act. But don't try giggling on an aeroplane because you'll be hauled off. And if you're traveling alone and you're giggling, you might find yourself in trouble. So yeah, that's the story of Americans and airlines. I don't know exactly why this issue is coming up now, but it's very worrying, isn't it? Americans are very political sometimes. They also choose who to fly with based upon their political leanings. It's really bizarre. It looks like who they vote for affects decisions in their daily life. For example, if we look at a few of the airlines in 2021-22, American Airlines gave £314,500 to the Democrats and 316,058 to the Republicans. And Southwest Airlines gave 131,500. I'm saying pounds, but of course it's actually dollars, isn't it, for Americans? So it's $131,500 to Democrats, and they gave 125,248 to the Republicans. United Airlines, $174,000 to the Democrats, and 161,000 to the Republicans. I'm not sure how they do this, whether it's the unions which are involved in the airlines or whether it's the airlines themselves. But it's all a little bit odd that you would decide who to fly with based upon who you vote for. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm British. I've never voted, not even once in my life. It's not that I don't want to vote, it's just that I think it's not relevant to me. I don't know who my candidates are. I don't know any people here who come to me to say, oh, are you going to vote for me? Maybe at election time, they'll appear on TV and they'll say, oh, I'm your local candidate, but I've never seen anyone or spoken to anyone about politics. Here, politics is not something that you publicize. It's a very private thing. Many people choose not to vote. I think one of our last local elections, 42% of us voted. Not that I have any big political idea about it. It's just I really don't care. I wasn't educated about politics. No one bothered to explain to me how my vote can affect the country. And when I see the behavior of politicians, why would I vote for them anyway? If I did have a view, it only would be that the whole system needs some kind of reform. Yeah, but apparently in America, the Democratic Party and its candidates receive more donations from airlines than the Republicans do. And it's because the Democrats have control over many key committees at a national level. So Continental Airlines spent 1 million lobbying for Democrats at the last election. And its political action committee, that's those figures I just gave you a moment ago, they spent $220,000 on election campaigns. They spent 52% of that money on Democrats and 48% on Republicans. I'm guessing at a local level, the airlines, whoever controls them, must also be a mixture of Democrats and Republicans. But imagine choosing who you vote for, and that reflecting on who you fly with. Isn't that just bizarre? Yeah, they're really weird with this kind of thing. I mean, sure, I have no doubt that airlines here are political. I mean, I know that, for example, Ryanair was very, very against Brexit, but that was not because they wanted a different government. It was only because they knew they would have to put prices up. And also, I think there was other political things, like, for example, Weatherspoons, our local pub chain. They make their political alliances known, but it's not to get you to vote for anybody. It's just to say that if you do vote for this person or this group, then be aware that our prices are likely to go up because they're planning to increase taxes. So I can kind of see the practicality of that, but I can't imagine going around telling people who I vote for and how that reflects which church I go to or which airline I fly with. Oh, no, 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 I couldn't do that. I'm saying all of this because when we see someone on social media, like a drunk American woman being taken off a plane, I'm sure people are looking at that and saying, "Ah, that's really bad. That terrible airline. Well, it's Democrats, so that's probably why." Or, "Oh, that terrible airline. Well, they vote Republican, so that's what happens." You see, so it's all tied into this really weird thing. Yeah, yeah, a little bit odd. Speaking of Japan and Asia, so I wanted a nice movie last night to watch before I went to bed. It's always nice to watch a thriller or horror before I actually sleep. It's not supposed to be that way, but it's the only ones which are kind of entertaining me. After a long day in Italki, all I want to see is the spaceship landing, a group of aliens coming, killing everyone and leaving. It doesn't have to be more complicated. I don't need to see the boy and the girl driving and then they see a strange light in the sky and then they drive up to it and they see the aliens. I just want to see the alien ship landing, the aliens getting out, preferably female, and then they kill everyone and then they leave. That's all I need, even for 10 minutes. So I started to watch this movie called Remember. It turned out to be a Japanese movie, but it was dubbed into English. They put the English voices over the Japanese voices. It just didn't work in English. I mean, the type of movie that it was didn't work. I'm not sure if it was supposed to be funny or just dark, but I watched the first 20 minutes of it and I'm thinking, what, what's the story here? It was a movie called Remember, so not the best movie in the world if you're looking for something on Netflix, but I'm sure it might be appealing if you're into that kind of thing. But it was a little bit strange and dark. So I put it off and then eventually watched Ghost Whisperer with Jennifer Love Hewitt's equally disappointing in some ways, but at least it's more believable in some strange way. And she only lasts an hour, which is good. whereas that movie, I think, was at least a couple of hours long. Anyway, that's it from me, making up for the short podcasts when I didn't have my voice. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Let's catch up soon. See you all. Bye.